My name is Tony Biddle. Thank you for choosing Altoona Indoor Range for your shooting experience today. This video is not intended to take the place of any hands-on instruction. Our intention is to help you understand that having a fun time on the range is being safe on the range. To help walk you through our safety procedures and basic shooting technique is our NRA certified instructor, Tom Poley.
Thanks, Tony. Again, my name's Tom, certified firearm instructor here at Altoona Indoor Range. Again, I want to also thank you for choosing us for your first shooting experience. During this short video, we're going to go over some very important safety information and the fundamentals of how to operate firearms, how they function, and how to shoot them. At any time after this video, you have any questions or concerns, make sure you ask one of our staff members and we can help you address those issues. In order to shoot on a gun on a range, there's a couple important details you need to be aware of. First of all, if you're renting one of our handguns from our range program or one of our rifles, you need to be aware that you have to use the ammunition that we provide to you from the store. If you're bringing your own personal firearm to the range, then you can use whichever caliber or whichever ammunition you feel is appropriate, as long as it's not any type of armor piercing or tracer type ammunition. First and foremost, we want to address the safety issues with handling firearms. We cannot stress the importance of this enough, so we're going to touch on a few key points here. First and foremost, everyone has to have eye protection and ear protection. Before stepping on the range, you must put these on and wear them throughout the entire time that you're on the shooting range. Once you exit the range, of course, you can take them off. But you cannot stress this enough, you have to have these on the entire time you're on the range firing a gun. In the shooting community, there are 4 standard rules for firearms handling safety. We're going to go over those 4 rules real quick here to make sure you understand them and understand they're extremely important, and we need you to adhere to these rules while you're here visiting us. First and foremost, you need to treat every firearm as if it's loaded. Even though this firearm appears as if it is unloaded, we've already checked it, we still need to handle it as if it is unloaded. I.e., if you are walking around this firearm inside the shop or within the range, you need to make sure you keep it pointed in a safe direction, down, and treat it as if it's loaded. We do this basically, what we're doing is building good habits for the future. Second of all, is always keep, basically what we just touched on, is always keep the muzzle in the pointed safe direction. When you're walking around the gun, keep it pointed in safe direction until you're ready to fire. When you're out on the range, don't be turning back and forth to any other individuals. We always want to make sure we keep the muzzles pointed downrange at all times. When not being fired, please lock them open, and we'll address how to do that later on. And again, keep them always pointed in safe direction at all times while you're handling the firearm. Third rule is always keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire. Even when you're loading the firearm and handling it, we don't want your finger on the trigger until your sights are on target and you're ready to fire the first rounds. So it's extremely important. It's universal throughout the community. We always want to keep your finger on the side of the gun until you're ready to shoot. And last but not least, the 4th rule is to, anytime somebody gives you a firearm, you want to make sure the firearm is unloaded and check this. There's a couple different ways to do this. First and foremost, we need to look at it, make sure you don't see any casings in there. And another good tip to do is to try to put your finger in the rear of the chamber to make sure there's no casings in there also. So just to review, treat every gun as if it's loaded. Always keep your muzzle pointed safe direction at all times. Keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire. And always check a firearm when it's handed to you to make sure it is unloaded. Okay, we're going to go over a couple different firearms to show you how they function, how they operate, so you can safely use them on a range. The first one we're going to go over is a semi-automatic handgun. So like we addressed earlier, is first and foremost we want to check this gun for safety. So the slide is already locked open. We'll inspect the chamber. There's no brass in there. And we'll also stick our finger in there. This gun is definitely clear. So we'll close that up. The top part of this gun here is called the slide. The lower part where the grip and trigger is called the frame. Up here we have the front sight, the rear sight. This particular firearm has a hammer, while some do not. Just keep that in mind. This also has a safety on the side here. Up is on, down is off. Again, some other firearms like this do not have safety, so I said again, be aware of that. Of course, the trigger is down here. You simply press the trigger and the firearm will discharge. Safety off. Okay. In addition, on this side of the gun, there's a magazine release here. On most semi-automatic handguns, the magazine release is in this general area somewhere. Sometimes on the trigger guard, but most of the time it's a button on this part right here. So what we'll do, in order to load this firearm, what we want to do is first load the magazine. We will insert the magazine. We'll pull the slide back, let it go, apply the safety, turn the safety on, keep our finger off the trigger until we're ready to fire. Put our gun up on target. When we're prepared to fire, we'll take the safety off, put our finger on the trigger, and fire the weapon. All right, the next type of firearm we're going to talk about is called a revolver. It's very similar to semi-automatic with a few distinct differences. First of all, again, we're going to check to make sure this gun is safe, inspected all the cylinders, and it is indeed safe. So on this firearm, it's a much simpler version than the semi-automatic. There's really no moving parts except for the center cylinder. Again, we have the front sights here as a very small gutted rear sight. This particular one does not have a hammer, while some do. A lot of revolvers actually do have hammers. This one happens to not have one. The lower part, again, we have the grip, of course, and the trigger. On the side of this firearm is what's called the cylinder release mechanism, where you depress this button on the side and the cylinder where the ammunition is held will pop out. And you can see there are 5 different holes for ammunition to go in. So we would load those individually. We would close the cylinder, keep our finger off the trigger at all times till we're ready to fire. Where sights are on target and ready to fire, we would take our finger, place on the trigger. There is no safety on these handguns, and simply pull the trigger, and the gun will discharge. So again, we have the front sight, the rear sight, the grip, the trigger. Here is the cylinder release. Depress that, the cylinder will pop out, and that's how we check and handle this firearm. All right, the next firearm we're going to discuss is the always popular AR-15 sporting rifle. We definitely rent these out very often, and people just love to shoot them. First and foremost, we start from the rear going forward. Has an adjustable buttstock. You simply pinch this rear lever here to slide it in and slide it out. Basically, you adjust that to fit your shoulder best in the length of pull. How far you want to be away from the gun when you shoot. Before we have the grip, the trigger is here. We have the rear sight, the front sight is here. Of course, we have the barrel. If you can see in here, this is called the bolt, and the charging handle opens that bolt and closes the bolt. That's how you would load the gun, as in a semi-automatic handgun where you just pull the slide back. This is like the slide of that handgun. Pull it back and let it go to load the gun. On this side here, you can see the safety. It's a lever. When it's pointing forward, the gun is safe. It will not discharge. When the safety is down, the gun is ready to fire. Again, keep your finger off the trigger until your sights are on target. Press the trigger. So, in order to load this, one more thing is on this side here. The button is the magazine release. How to remove the magazine once you're done firing the weapon. So, in order to operate this firearm, you take the loaded magazine. You'll insert the loaded magazine, pull the bolt back, charging handle, let it go just as we did on the semi-automatic handgun. Keep our turn safety on in the up position. Finger off the trigger until ready to fire. Sights on target, muzzle on target, and when we're ready, take the safety off and press the trigger. So, to review real quick, we have the barrel, the front sight, the rear sight is here, the bolt is in here, the charging handle you pull back to load the weapon, the adjustable rear stock, grip, trigger, magazine release is right here, and again the safety is here. All right, and last but not least, we have the bolt action rifle we have for rent here at the range. It's a little bit similar to the sporting rifle we just handled, but there's some few distinct differences. From the rear, going forward again, we have the stock, we have the grip where you handle the firearm, we have the bolt that goes in and out and loads the gun, triggers here, safety is a small lever right here on the side, it goes forward and backwards. Rear sight, front sight, and of course the barrel. In order to load this firearm, we would take a loaded magazine, insert it, close the bolt by pulling the lever down, put the safety to the rear. Safety is on when it's pulled back to the rear. The thing is forward is fire. So we want to keep our finger off the trigger until the sights are on target and ready to go. So we push the safety off or in the forward position and press the trigger to the rear. Again, to review, we have the barrel, of course, the front sight, rear sight, the bolt goes in and out, safety is here, the stock, grip, trigger, and the magazine has a little toggle release right here. All right, everyone, here we are in the range now. I just want to go over a couple key points to shooting to get you started in the right direction. We're just going to real quick talk about your stance. It's pretty important to have a correct stance. We want to be able to shoot effectively and efficiently while not causing any harm to anyone else or falling backwards with the loaded firearm. So first we're going to do is want to keep our feet shoulder width apart in our stance. We don't want to get too narrow, as this dramatically affects our balance. We want to be very stable in our shooting stance, so we want to keep them kind of like you would normally stand every day. Next we want to do is bend slightly at the knees. This just helps, again, to maintain a more stable platform. And we're going to bend slightly at the waist also. We definitely do not want to be leaning backwards like this shooting firearm, because it will cause you to take a step back and a potentially unsafe environment. So again, we're going to go shoulder width apart, knees slightly bent, leaning forward, and we're going to keep our arms out in front of us with the firearm. You can bend them slightly if you want to, or you can lock them out. It's really up to you, whichever way you feel most comfortable. And that's a good way to get started with our stance. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about real quick is the grip, or how to handle the firearm. The grip is very important because it ties the gun to your hand. First and foremost, as always, we want to make sure this gun is safe. We've inspected the chamber. It is in fact safe to handle. So first thing we want to do is keep our right hand or shooting hand nice and high on the rear of this gun. Always keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire. Next thing you want to do is take this void, the gap in this grip, and fill it with the heel of your hand. Fill that void there. Try to push your thumbs in a forward pointing direction. Safety on is up, safety off. Finger off the trigger to ready fire, and press the trigger to the rear. And never, under any circumstances, should you cross your thumb across the rear of this gun. This will definitely cause injury, so try to avoid that. The next thing we're going to talk about is how to correctly aim the firearm. Again, we spoke about earlier is the front sight here, and the rear sight is located at the back of the slide. In order to correctly line up the sights, we want to take the front sight and center it in the rear notch of the rear sight. This particular set of sights has 3 dots on it, 3 white dots. So when the front sight is centered in the rear sight, it should be 3 dots in a straight line. Once that's accomplished, we want to center the front sight dot on whatever target we're aiming at. For example, our green circle's downrange. We want to place the white dot in the center of the green circle downrange. So again, center the front sight between the notch and the rear sight. It should be 3 dots in a straight line, and center the front sight dot on the green circles and press the trigger to the rear. Fire the gun. All right, everyone. Now we talked about all of the safety information and how to correctly hold the firearm and shoot the firearm. We're going to give you a quick demonstration how to actually discharge live ammunition from these guns. So we previously checked this firearm. It's ready to go. We're going to take our loaded magazine. I'm going to insert it. We're going to keep it pointed safe direction now. Slide back. Let it go. Fingers off the trigger. This particular gun does not have a safety, so we're not going to worry about that right now. Just keep your finger off the trigger. We're going to take our shooting stance, our correct shooting grip, correct sight alignment, sight picture, aim the gun, and fire. All right, everyone, we're just going to review one last time the 4 most important rules for firearms handling safety. First of all, is again to review, is treat every gun as if it's loaded, always, no matter what. Even if you know for sure the gun is unloaded, you still want to treat it as if it's loaded to build good habits and maintain a safe shooting environment. The next one, of course, is always keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction, or the end of the gun pointed in a safe direction at all times. Whether you're shooting or not shooting, you're walking about the range or inside the range, always keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction at all times, no matter what. And third is to always keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire. And again, walking around the range, anytime you're handling this firearm, always keep your finger on the side of the gun until your sights are lined up and on target and you're ready to fire the gun. And last but not least, number 4 is to always check any firearm that's handed to you. Even if we hand it to you at the counter, it's locked open, you still want to take the firearm into your possession, inspect the chamber, make sure it is in fact unloaded, and then go about your business. We can't stress enough the importance of these 4 safety rules. In fact, we're going to give you what's called a 2-strike rule here at the range. If we catch you doing something unsafe, as in mainly pointing your gun in an unsafe direction or at another person, we're going to ask you once politely to not do that again. If for some reason we catch you doing it a second time, we're going to have to ask you to leave for that day and you can come back some other time. We just said we cannot stress the importance of these safety rules. These guns are potentially very dangerous. If handling correctly, we really need to enforce the safety rules we discussed.
Thanks, Tom. Please keep these safety tips in mind and enjoy your day on the range.